Well, a collective sigh of relief may be heard from parents on Wednesday when the school year kicks off in 5 provinces. Many are hoping the 2022 academic year will resemble something close to pre-pandemic normal, but that means back to early mornings and many hours behind the books. So how do we get kids back into a learning routine after a month off? More, in fact. Professor Renata Schoeman is an educational psychologist with a special interest in attention, concentration, learning and memory. Dr. Schoeman, thank you so much for joining us. How do we get kids back to sleep at a reasonable hour? I know we shouldn't have let them go to bed late in the first place, but getting back into routine means, in my household, a few very grumpy children.
Morning, just a correction, I'm a psychiatrist, not an educational psychologist. So the first thing, as you said, we should actually maintain routine. The first step is just getting them back to sleep and out of bed a bit earlier, because sleep is crucial for the brain and also for the bodies in terms of facing the stress ahead. So small steps is most likely going to be less unhappy faces. So start with 15 minutes earlier every evening until next week. Or if your child is a bit more easygoing and compliant, maybe half an hour earlier, but to get them back to going to bed is the very, very first step. And then also to rise earlier, not just to sleep until they feel like waking up. The second thing is really to discuss with the children the year ahead and what is their fears, engage in conversation. What are they worried about? Young children will be worried about different things than the older children or the teens. So discuss that fears and also get back to diaries or plan your week ahead. Tell them how's the morning routine going to be like. What should you assist them with, what they can do independently. And then also what is very important when you discuss getting things ready, don't wait till Monday or Sunday evening. Start to do every little thing today already. And also make sure that if you plan next week and the weeks ahead, that you do structure meal times for the children as well. Healthy snacks, getting that ready and plan how that is going to work, what is their responsibilities, and also exercise. Very, very important thing is also to get control of the technology exposure again. This excessive screen time, I know that that's the way they communicate, and there's a lot of important things that screen time brings to children and teenagers, socially and educationally, but we should have controls over it and also discuss what will be the acceptable IT exposure allowance in your household in terms of hours and also in terms of when.
I know, Professor, that it is age-appropriate screen time, but what would you suggest? Because that is an absolute war in my household. You know, screen time is just, it's something that I've enabled because it gives me a break, but it's also turned into a little monster in our house. How do we reduce screen time without there being drama?
The very first thing is we need to control our own screen time. You can't expect the child not to be on the screen, but you sitting on your phone and you sitting and scrolling and doing that excessively. And also to give them alternatives. You know, if they can't be on screen, make sure that they have games or books or outside time, whatever is possible. The first step is to not have any phones available at meal times. That phones need to be handed in, they need to charge in the kitchen. And that's the rules for us as adults as well. It shouldn't go to bed with you. The third thing is also that, as you mentioned, it's age appropriate, but obviously we take into consideration that they often work online, some of the schools, and they need their devices. But a general rule of thumb is then preschoolers, no more than 30 minutes, primary school, 1 hour, secondary school, 1.5 hours. But that's a rule of thumb. But for me, also screen time should be a reward. In other words, if you have done your homework, if you've assisted with the chores, if you did your daily exercise outside or be active, then you can have screen time. And usually the children, when you engage with them in other activities and they see that there's nice things that they can do outside of their devices, they are way more engaging in it. But if you just say, this is the rules, then you're definitely going to be facing some grumpy faces. And I fully understand. I can talk for myself. I must say between 5 and 5:30 in the afternoon, I also am very relieved that there's some good programs for the little ones to watch, just to have a little breather.
Very quick one. I remember mid last year, there were so many teenagers especially who were experiencing extreme anxiety and all sorts of psychological disorders from COVID, isolation, not being with their peers. Has that calmed down and settled a little bit with the school holidays? Are you seeing as many adolescent patients who are coming in with issues?
It's interesting, we're starting the practice today, and I must say the week is full with children and adolescents this week. But many of them, the fears are now returning to school, having a normal routine where previously they were a bit more removed. Will I still be fitting in socially? Do I still have something to talk about with my friends? Will I cope with the academic environment, all the people around me? So again, have that conversations. I do think it has died down a little bit, but we do see a new pandemic of mental health disorders that's fueled by TikTok videos, people that's now self-diagnosing, and a new trends that's developing with the infectious nature of social media exposure. So it is a problem that we are facing in clinical practice, that we see that there's less fears about their own health. That has calmed down definitely. But in terms of other identity issues and self-diagnosis of personality things, anxiety disorders, etc., definitely on the rise.
All right, thank you for your insight there, Professor Renata Schoeman, a psychiatrist, talking to us about getting kids back into a routine for the new school year.